Folks, it's Fernando doing our video for the Modern Survivalist, and today I'd like to talk maybe a little bit about something different, about relocating, not from the survival perspective, from the practical one, but from the human side of moving somewhere else, relocating, living in another country, simply because of the desire to do so, simply because of the life experience such a thing involves. In my second book, my first one was, by the way, the Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse, urban survival manual for post-economic collapse based on my experience in Argentina. My second book was this one. It's Bugging Out and Relocating, which is basically a two-part book. Half of it is addressing bugging out when, whatever reason, you have to leave in a very short notice your place of residence. Maybe a fire, maybe a flood, natural disasters, man-made, something that basically forces you out of your place of residence. Depending on the nature of the disaster, it may be seconds, it may be minutes, it may be hours. The second part about relocating is addressing the conscious decision of moving somewhere else because wherever it is that you're living in, you're no longer finding it viable as a place to living because conditions have changed. Because again, it may be natural, or it may be as I'm talking here, I see a guy with one of those parachutes being pulled by a boat. That's pretty awesome. So whatever it is that is changing the reality of the country where you live in, you no longer find it viable as for you to continue residing there. It may be thinking of Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine with the war. If you think of Venezuela, over a period of years, it was clear it's no longer a place to live in. And for some people, that hit them 5-6 years ago, already with Hugo Chavez, or maybe being more tolerant, or their threshold was a little bit higher, and even right now they're deciding to just leave when when food is no longer even available in the country. That's when they decide to leave. Now, in this video, I'd like to talk about relocating somewhere else simply because of the experience of doing so. Right now, I'm here in Costa del Sol, pretty much in Malaga, in Spain. And it's a fantastic place to live in. I mean, I'm sitting here watching, boats going back and forth, a guy in a parachute floating around and having a great time. And if you were born here and you live here your entire life, that's perfectly fine, right? Same as wherever it is that you're from. You were born there, lived there your entire life. There's really nothing wrong with that. Some places are cooler than others. Some places are nicer than others. Better in one sense or the other, have different realities. But the thing is that when you live in different places, your life is, there's a different. It becomes more rich because of those experiences. I was having just a conversation just a few days ago with my family. I wish I could have filmed that sort of thing, and I don't do that because it would be an invasion of our privacy way beyond what I'm okay with. Sometimes I wish I could go around with a camera filming everything that I see, which would make for very good videos in YouTube and very entertaining for sure, much more interesting than just watching me talking. But that's the kind of thing that it would be like giving up too much of my privacy and family life, and I'm not just willing to go for that. But we were talking about this thing that we've been doing of living in different places, right? And we're talking that my 6-year-old has already lived in Argentina, in Ireland, and now in Spain. He's gone to school in Argentina, Ireland, and Spain. He started in 3 different schools in 3 different countries, went through the process of being the new kid, struggling a little bit at first, improving, and always ending up top of his class in all 3 countries. That's the kind of challenge that he's had by age 6, that there's people that live their entire lives in the same neighborhood they were born in, or in the same city, or in the same state, and they've never had to do anything like that, let alone 3 times, and he has. And talking with them, with my kids, my wife, you realize that we are better off because of that. The word that I use is you live more lives when you do this sort of thing. All right, if you live your entire life in the city you were born in, or pretty much in the environment that you were born in, that's great. But it's one life. If you live there and you spend a few years somewhere else, you kind of live 2 different lives, because of the environment that you were in, because of having to adapt to something different, and getting to figure out how things work over there. It's involving lots of challenges for sure, absolutely, but I think you get so much more out of it. There's really I don't think there's really a bad experience. And this is kind of contradictory with what I do professionally, from the point of view of consulting for people that pay me to actually tell them what to do in this sort of thing. If you pay me to tell you about moving one place or another, and usually the thing with guys from the United States, it's always Panama or Puerto Rico or something like that. And 99% of the time, my answer is no, just don't do it. Okay. And there's people that live in certain places that I have told them to go for and are extremely happy with that choice. Now the thing is this. There's always this other side. This guy is floating. Like, I did this video like 2 times already because I screwed up somehow. This guy is still in that parachute floating. He goes away and he comes back. I don't know. There may be like a current or something, because he's always... Yeah, I should show you guys how that is. What I was talking about. Yeah. So if I tell you we're having our little phone conversation and you're telling me about living in Milwaukee and wanting to go live to Panama and never having lived anywhere else your entire life, not knowing a single word of Spanish, my advice is usually going to be no, just don't do that. It's not going to be working out for you. You will be quite miserable there. Now, the thing is, if that's what you really have to do, if that's one of those itches you just have to scratch, no matter what I tell you, you're going to be doing it anyway, and that's just fine, because it goes beyond this. It goes beyond the practical side of where, honestly, being completely objective, you are better off in one place or the other, right? It goes beyond that. And even if you go there, I know of people that moved to Panama, spent a year there, could not tolerate the different culture, the different way of doing things, which is, it's completely different from what you are used to in a developed country, especially from the United States. Every single little thing that you want to do is catastrophic mess in comparison to how simple everything is in the United States, where you pick up a phone, you call someone, you give him your details, and things get sorted out. Nothing like that works in Central or South America in that way, as simple. And it's impossible. I mean, people really struggle with adapting to that sort of thing. Now, even then, I think it's better, if you really want to do that, to go and do it. And at least you can say, you know what, yeah, I've been to Panama. I really like to go there. I lived there for a year, loved it, but eventually moved back to the United States. Now, that's much better than never daring to do that. Now, we're talking about 2 separate things. If you're looking at, I want to move to Panama because the United States is so horrible and it's about to collapse, and I think I'm going to be much better off in Panama, then you're completely mistaking as of what you're going to be getting from that experience, from that move. You're not going to be more settled and better sorted out in Panama than you are in the United States. Now, if you're looking at having the life experience of living in Panama, by all means, go nuts with that. Or Mexico, or Puerto Rico, or wherever, or India, or wherever it is that you're going to be living because you have it in you. That's completely different. But the the thing about experiencing life in different countries, man, I think it's totally, absolutely worth it. That's when, when I even get emails about, should I go, I want to learn Spanish, so should I go to this country or the other? And you know what, if you are young, you don't have wife, kids, you don't have anything like that, and you have very little money and you just want to go for it, why not? Go to Australia and work there for a living for a couple of years, see how it goes. I have actually a friend that did just that, and he ended up great, right? He ended up loving the place, stayed there, living there with his family and such. He started a family there. In my case, I have 2 kids. I still, feel that freedom. I think it's much worse if you don't dare do these things. If at the end of the day, and there's nothing wrong with living your life in the same neighborhood you were born in your entire life and living your last day there as well. But, and maybe it's a big but I think that in general, what people regret the most when they're 90 years old in their deathbed, I think you're far more likely to regret not having done the things that you wish you had the courage to do or go for. And I go back to this thing of, you live more when you live in different places. You have more lives. You live the life of the guy that was born wherever it is that you are from, and you have the life of the guy that is in whatever country you visited. You experience that same thing as that person that lives there. I think that at the end of the day, the more of these you have, the more life experiences that you have. There's that saying of, no one regretted spending more hours in the office in his deathbed. I'm not about to die, guys, or anything like that. I think that, I was reading a post about a guy in one of the survival forums that he was saying that he got invited to do a private tour guide thing in Normandy in France, and he was seeing about if he dared go to France because of I don't know, the terrorist threats over there. And fortunately, most people were encouraging him to do so, because it's crazy to think that you will not dare do these things because of a possible terrorist attack in France. I mean, it's not Iraq, it's France, and even as bad as things are over there, the likelihood of you dying or suffering or getting your life ruined because of a terrorist attack in France while visiting, it's extremely low. I mean, it's far lower than being a victim of a violent crime in most large United States cities, which the same person wouldn't doubt visiting for a second. So sometimes in the survival community, people sometimes are pretty paranoid in that sort of thing, in that sort of thinking. And I think it's a shame, because there's so much to see out there. It's completely worth it. There was this post that I did a few weeks ago about a guy that lived, I think it was like 30 or 40 years in a cave in Argentina. The guy was like 80 years old, living in a cave, lived his entire life in the same little town, and spent the last 30 or 40 years in a cave. Right? And that's some of the things that people, when they say going off grid and living off the land, that's the kind of thing some people, not all, but some people are thinking about doing that sort of thing, that in some way is better than an alternative. And one of the things, interesting enough, one of the things that this person, when interviewed, was saying is, if he had any regrets, he said, you know what, maybe I should have gone to see the world a little bit more. And he mentioned about, but going to Europe would mean crossing all that water. Maybe a guy with a limited amount of formal education and not much of an open mind thing. But trying to wrap this up a little bit, I think that it's much better if you have the courage to do some of these things that some people dream about doing and don't finding them the courage. They start thinking about the potential problems, the potential negatives, or all the things that could go bad. And sometimes things do go bad. And maybe moving, relocating to some other country, you go there and you like it. For example, in my case, there's things that I like for different periods of time in my life, right? The things that I'm doing today and the things I'm doing today and what I feel I need today for my family and myself as an individual, but thinking of course as a father, husband, parent, the things that I need and wish my kids to experience today are different from what it was 5 years ago, and no doubt it's going to be different from what I'm going to be wanting or needing 30 years from now. I'm going to be needing and wanting probably very different things. Most likely I'm going to be going, trying to stay close to my kids as they grow older and make their own decisions. So I don't think that you should be tied to some place. I think that the idea of, sure, you have your home and such, which you can always rent the place, you can always buy something else, you can always go, or you can even, have your home wherever that you were born in, and rent that place, or have someone look after it, maybe some family member staying there or whatnot, and you going out there and doing other things with your life as well. I think that if you do that, if you have the courage to do many of these things, you are more likely than not, you're not going to be regretting none of it. I know that for each country that I lived in, and there's a few now, each place as well, different places and people, there's always, you remember always the good stuff. Sometimes the quirky, funny, bad stuff as well stays with you more like a joke than anything else. But man, that's basically what this video is about, guys. Have the courage to, beyond the practical side of things, beyond the practical side of being a survival strategy to move somewhere else where your life is not at risk or where your life is miserable, correct? Beyond that, even if you're perfectly happy where you are and you want to maybe have one more life experience, one more important life experience, have the courage, go for it. I'm sure you're not going to be regretting it. Guys, have a great day, subscribe, take care, thumbs up, see you on our next video.